Hello friends, in today's class we are going to talk about scope of the declaration and we'll also discuss L value and R value of a variable. Welcome again, and here we'll talk about a few small issues, which is scope of the declaration. Okay, so there are few certain issues that related with this. So let me read out the portion of the program to which declaration applies is called the scope. Okay, so the meaning is that if I write a main function and if I say int a and if I close the bracket and there will be various statement, so application that is applied to this a entire a, and that is the scope of variable. You see, scope of variable. And the question is that if I do a nesting over here and I declared int a over here, okay, is the scope is still applied to this block, and let me call it as nested nested ne, and let's say a. Okay, and this is this is a block main. Okay, so that way. So now is this scope is still applied over here? Okay, so the answer for this question is no. Okay, so no, this scope is not applied over here. So this scope of a is here outside of this opening bracket and inside this this closing bracket, but not within this and this opening bracket. Okay, so that is basically the scope of the declaration. The portion of the program in which declaration is applied is called scope of the declaration. An occurrence of a name in a procedure is said to be local to the procedure if it is in the scope of the declaration within the procedure. Otherwise, it is called as non-local. Okay, so now this is clearly saying that what is a local variable and what is a non-local variable. So what is the definition? An occurrence of name procedure is said to be local to the procedure if it is within the scope of a declaration within the procedure, within the scope, okay, within the scope of the declaration within the procedure. So now this, it is in the scope. In this scope, this a variable is called as a is local to main. Okay, and there is another a, and that is a nested one. Okay, so that is a local within the procedure, and it is a local variable. So this is first topic. Now the next is here is mapping names to the value. Okay, now even if each name is declared once in the program, the same name may denote the different data object at runtime. Okay, so that first when we started the introduction of this runtime environment, so I told you that there can be different data object. Okay, so the same name may denote the different data object. Now informal term data object correspond to the storage location that can hold value. So data object is what? Informally, that a storage location that can hold the value. In programming language semantic, the term environment is referred to the function that maps name to the storage location. So there is a function whenever you declare a variable. Let's say I declare a variable a, int a. So this a somewhere in the memory, a storage location will be declared and a will be associated with it. So that is what is calling that environment refers to a function that maps name to a storage location. The term state, another term is the state. Okay, this is the state, and state refers to the function that maps storage location storage location to the value held there. Okay, so storage location to the value is the state and it is the environment. So now sometimes we name to the storage location, that also can be referred as what? L value of a variable, and state is the nothing but the value held in that position, and that is nothing but the R value of the variable. Okay, so these are the very technical term, that environment and the state. That is also environment maps to the L value and state maps to the, okay, so this is a L value to R value. Okay, So that storage is mapped to value. Okay, so that is, let's say if I say a equal to 10, and this is nothing but 10. So name to the storage L value, and storage to the value is your R value. Now the next is your static and the dynamic counterpart. So what is static notion and what is the dynamic notion? Okay, so static notion is definition of the procedure. So if you define a procedure int, let's say f function, let's say function, and I say int a comma b, okay, int a comma int b, and then I'll say return a plus b. Now this is a static entity. What is a dynamic thing? If I run this, or activation, just now we have learned. So that is a dynamic entity. Declaration of a variable name. Okay, so if I just declare int a equal to 10, this is the declaration as well as assignment. It's a static entity. But in the runtime, what association of a to storage, or let's say location, and location to its value, that is your binding of names. Okay, and that is your dynamic entity. Scope of the declaration is the static notion. Lifetime of the binding, that how long it will be binded to that particular location, and the value, that is a dynamic entity. Okay, so that is the static and dynamic counterpart for these procedures, variable names, and the scope. Okay. So that's all for this discussion. Thank you.